Hi, thank you so much for joining us today. You know, have you ever heard somebody say, I'm once removed? What does that mean? What does once removed mean? Okay. First cousins have a common grandparent. Second cousins share a common great-grandparent. Third cousins share a common great-great-grandparent, and so on. In all of these cases, there are the same number of generations away from a common ancestor. With first cousins who are once removed, they are one generation apart or removed in their connection to the ancestor. In other words, one descends from the grandparent and other from the great-grandparent. Your first cousin's daughter is your first cousin once removed. And your first cousin once removed daughter would be your first cousin twice removed, etc. When we say that Lee Marvin is a first cousin 4 times removed of Robert E. Lee, this means that Robert E. Lee's grandfather was Lee Marvin's 4th great-grandfather. Lee Marvin's 2nd great-grandmother, Anne Matilda Lee, and Robert E. Lee were first cousins. Interesting, interesting, interesting. Now, you might go to cemeteries to check the headstones for your genealogy, but here's something a little bit nice to know when you go cemetery searching. The oldest graves are found in the south part of a churchyard, as it was the custom to avoid the shadow of a church falling across the graves. It was thought that in the shadows lurked the devil, and as every good man and woman knew, the devil always rode in from the north. In Victorian times, the extreme north sides of the churchyard was reserved for suicides. Salt, salt, salt. Salt was once better than gold. Did you know that salt is one of the only rocks that we eat? Salt has been a very important mineral to all humans for quite some time. Salt is important in the history of the Celtic people because they mined it and used it for trade. The Celts were known as the salt people. In ancient times, salt was very important and valuable because it was the main preservative for nearly everything. Without refrigerators, using salt to dry foods was the best way to preserve foods effectively. Although the Celts started out by mining salt from the earth, they soon found out that they could use the sea to provide salt too. To get salt from the sea, they created shallow pools for the seawater to flow into, and then waited for the sun to evaporate the water to get to the salt. My goodness. When we do genealogy, we want to use primary records whenever we can. In genealogy, there are 3 basic types of records you use in learning about your family history and to validate information. Primary records include birth and marriage records as well as Bible records. Death records are not considered primary records because the informant may not have known the deceased well. Birth and death dates may also be inaccurate, and parental information may not have been available. Bible records are considered primary records because the information is typically provided by someone with knowledge of the event at the time the event took place. Secondary records are those written by someone who knew about the person but wasn't actually there at the time the event took place. Secondary records include probate and land records written by clerks and attorneys, census records, which contain information given by a person within the household. Tertiary records are those written by people who were not witnesses to an event and who wrote the material long after the event occurred. Tertiary records include county histories, biographies, family histories, and school and tax records. And it is very wise to seek evidence to confirm dates and resources from secondary and tertiary records. Lots of things we have to know when we do genealogy, but it's all fun.